sure we help from one of the worship leaders here. Let's stand and sing together this morning. Sing it all back, sing it all back. Life and eternal.
Feeling good? You guys can go ahead and grab a seat. And hey, as you're doing so, if you don't mind scooting towards the center of the row that you're seated in, that'll help us make room for lots of people that are still pouring in. And hey, if we've never gotten the chance to meet, my name is Ridge. I have the honor of serving as one of our pastors on staff here at Lifepointe. And y'all, I don't know if you're aware of this, but God has been moving already even in this new year. How many of you were here last Sunday for our first gathering of 2023? Yeah? And if you were at the 10:30 service last week, you know how many people were here. But here's a really cool stat that just blew me away. Last weekend at Lifepointe, in kids and students alone, we saw nearly 500 kids and students. Can we celebrate that? That's a good-sized church, right? And that's just kids and students, and naturally that means there were so many families and people on campus. Matter of fact, at the 10:30 service last week, we had to go into our overflow space where we had 58 people sitting in overflow because we couldn't fit all those people in the auditorium. And I bring that up for two reasons. Number one, gosh, how amazing is it that God's doing this, right? This is answered prayer. This is a blessing. It's certainly not a problem, but it's just incredible. But at the same time, we have to try to then say, how do we respond? And we want to be the very best stewards of our space that we can possibly be. And so just a challenge for you, if Sundays for you are flexible, we just encourage you, would you consider attending the noon service? And again, the reasoning behind that is it makes space. There's always going to be bigger crowds at 9 and 10:30. So if you're able to be flexible, sleep in. If you're like me, I mean, my team's out. The New York Jets broke my heart again. We're not in the playoffs, so I'm cool with being here a little after 1. I got no game to watch. So we'd love for you to join us at the noon service. And maybe for you, you're sitting here and all this is overwhelming because you're new to Lifepointe. We'd love to welcome you. Matter of fact, can we make some noise for anybody who's new to Lifepointe here for the first time? We really mean it when we say we're glad that you're here, and thanks for taking a chance to just try out a church. And so we invite you to come back not just for this one visit, but for 5 visits. And if you grab a Connect card that looks like this on the back of the chair in front of you, if you fill that out and let us know who you are, what we'll do is send you one short video for each of your tribes that just helps you understand a little bit about who we are, and then we can answer any questions that you have for us. So if you fill out those Try 5 cards, on your way out the doors, there's 2 things you can do. We've got a next steps area in the lobby with a really great team of people who'd love to meet you if you'd like to chat or ask a question. Or you can just take the Connect cards and drop them in the blue metal boxes that are mounted in the doorways as you exit. And those boxes are also one of the ways that you can give financially at Lifepointe. So if you came prepared to give with tithes and offerings in hand, you can place that in the boxes, or just know that you can always give online through our website or our app. And just know that your recurring giving is what makes Lifepointe possible. I mean, I hope you know that. Like, we're a church that's powered by God's grace and your obedience. And when you give, it makes everything that we do as a church happen, and so many great things are happening. Matter of fact, one of the most important things we will do all year has already started last week, and that is 28 days of prayer and fasting. If you're taking part in this, man, I hope that it's going great. I hope you're not super irritable and hard to be around, depending on what you gave up. But it's certainly not too late to jump in and just prioritize some time with Jesus to start this year. And the reason I bring that up is because we're going to do something really cool that's going to happen right towards the end of that 28 days. It's coming up on February the 1st, and that is a night of worship. And we love, let's make some noise for that. It's going to be fun. And gosh, if you're anything like me, I mean, one of the first things you notice about Lifepointe is how incredible our worship team is. And so it's going to be a great night where we just take an intentional hour. And we use that language intentionally because we know that on a Wednesday night, which is February 1st, you got stuff to do, you got kids to put to sleep, and so we're going to come together and say, hey, for 1 hour, we're going to put all distractions aside, come together and worship Jesus. So we'd love for you to be there. If you text worship to the numbers on the screens beside me, you'll be able to RSVP so that we can get childcare ready so that you can worship. And y'all, we don't have to wait until February the 1st to worship. If you would stand to your feet right now, we're going to continue in worship together this morning, and we're so grateful that you're here.
Christ is my firm foundation.
tomorrow is MLK Day, or Martin Luther King Day, and we celebrate it with having a day off work, having a day off from school, and it's all for one man who was so impactful to this country that we celebrate him for a whole day. And it's crazy, we get to like have a day off of work and have a day off of school because of things he did and the stuff that he did in this country. And you know, we always talk about the civil rights activist part of Martin Luther King, but what a lot of us forget and maybe not even know is that he started as a pastor. He started by teaching the words of Jesus, and this was something that was passed down through generations. His father was a pastor, his grandfather was a pastor, his great-grandfather was a pastor. It was just part of what he did, part of what his family did. They were raised, and literally Jesus was woven into the fabric of the King family. And so when you think about the fact that he was a pastor before he was a civil rights activist, you start to notice how the things he did and the way that he did them as a civil rights activist were filtered through the lens of Jesus. And so the way that he spoke to other people and the way that he stood up for what he believed in, but didn't do it by knocking somebody else down or being physical or being violent. He did it in a way that Jesus would have done it, and ultimately lost his life for what he believed in. And it's kind of like Jesus. You know, the Lord lost his life because he was being persecuted for something he believed in. And so we're just honored in this country to have somebody like Martin Luther King that came through and changed the world. And so we're grateful for that. And just tomorrow, just remember it's more than just a day off, that it's a day off for a man that sacrificed his life for what he believed in. So yeah, absolutely. So we're grateful for what that means for our country and for us. And so we're going to sing another song together before we finish up here. And let's just sing with us, please.
Well, good morning, Lifepointe. We feeling good today? We good? Excited to be in the house. Grateful to have you. Can we thank our worship team one more time? Man, every weekend. Phenomenal. Grateful. And we're glad to have you today. I love that we're not just welcoming everybody who's in a physical location, but this is also the service we stream online. So welcome to our online community. And if you're a first-time guest with us, again, my name's Nate. And I get the privilege to serve as one of the pastors, and we're grateful to have you. So let's just welcome everybody in today. It's part of our custom. We see you. We notice you. We're grateful to have you. And we say this all the time if you are new, that you belong with us before you believe like us. And I really mean that. Like, come, explore, see who this Jesus is that has literally changed my life. And maybe you'll discover that this is a place for you as well. So today, but kind of before we get into this, I just think it's finally time that I tell you something about me, okay? I'm one of those people. I'm a morning person. I know, okay. How many of you are morning people? Morning people in the house? All right, this is good. How many of you are annoyed by morning people? We just annoy you, yeah. Isn't this true? I know a morning if you're a morning person like myself, we just give off this aura like we're better than you. That somehow you're lazy for getting the extra hour. The time you wake up, I've had a workout, I've had my coffee, I've closed on 5 sales, and I've cleaned the house. What are you doing? You know? So my wife, Emily, she's not a morning person, okay? So it's an interesting dynamic. Now, what she just can't figure out about me is not the fact that I like to get up early. It's how do I have so much energy the moment my feet hit the ground? And it's true, I'm ready to go. And so she doesn't understand that, and I do annoy her. Now, but here's what happened a couple weeks ago. I was up early. It was still dark outside, and I didn't want to wake her up. So I had this breakfast meeting that I had to go to. So I grabbed my phone. You ever done this? I grabbed my phone, I turn on the flashlight, and I'm trying to find out what to wear in the closet, which is also a little hard because I'm also partially colorblind. True story. So I did my best. I pull out what I think matches, and then I begin to get dressed in the complete dark. I mean, it's pitch. Some of y'all look really nervous. I have a shirt on underneath this. You're looking at me like, is this about to get really weird? I promise it's not gonna get weird. So I start to get dressed in the dark. If you've ever tried to get dressed in the dark, it's challenging, you know? So I just did my best. I thought I was, doing this good, and I go over and I kiss my wife on the cheek, and then I leave, and I walked out the house looking like this. And I didn't realize it. And I met this person for breakfast like this. Sat through the whole breakfast meeting, had a great time. I stand up to shake his hand when I get this interesting up-down look, which I didn't understand it until I went to the bathroom. And I looked in the mirror, and I'm like, oh, dear God, I look like my 5-year-old daughter when she dresses herself. You ever done this? And I thought for a second, isn't this this is interesting, because the shirt technically still works. I mean, it's on, the buttons are together, the shirt stays up, it's just off. Yeah, and I wonder if maybe today that's just a little bit about how life feels. Maybe you just feel off. Like when you don't get the first button right, everything else seems to be disaligned. And so, maybe last year you accomplished your goals, but you just feel like you're still unsatisfied chasing after something else. You have a great life, but for whatever reason, it's just not enough. Off. You feel off in your marriage. You love your spouse. It's just off. You feel off in your parenting. Your friendships feel off. Your relationship with God feels off. And if I just wonder if maybe the design of this shirt, if it's as simple as this, that there's a designer, right, who created this shirt, where if you get the first button in right, and then the second, and the third, then everything else just seems to fall in place. That could it be possible that there is a designer, God, your eternal creator over your life, that has designed your life in an order that was meant for your soul to thrive? So when you get the first button right and God priority, and the second and the third, life and the rhythm just seems to make sense. But when it's out of order, everything just seems off, and you're busy and you're hurried and you're unproductive. See, I've realized today that you don't live the life that you desire, you live the life that you decide. Y'all get that? You don't live the life that you desire, you ultimately will live the life that you decide. And if you don't decide to orient your life the way your designer, your creator intended for your soul to thrive, you will be caught on the hamster wheel of productivity the rest of your life, falling right into the hands of the enemy. Look, if Satan knows that he can't unsave you, which by the way, he can't, he will do everything just to keep you busy. Church, hurry is not of the devil. Hurry is the devil. Jesus said something different. He said, I've come that you may have life. Everyone shout life. Life and life to the full. Matthew 11, Jesus said, come to me all who are wearied and burdened, and I'll give you rest. Not a behavior modification program, not more religious hoops that you've got to somehow jump through. No, I'll give you rest. So I'm just thinking if the pace and the rhythm of Jesus is one that leads to a life of peace, then why are so many of us in a hurry to become somebody that we don't even like? So if you just feel like your life is a little off today, then maybe you're in the right place. As we kick off part 2 of a 5-week conversation called Hurry, Rush, Repeat. How do we break the cycle of busy and learn the rhythm of Jesus, which is a rhythm of rest? And so last Sunday we kicked it off in Mark chapter 1. Were y'all here last week? Was it good? Was it helpful? Was it okay? All right. Your enthusiasm is overwhelming. Thank you. I appreciate that. If you missed, you can always go back. We have a YouTube channel like everybody does, and you can always catch up there. But we really started off with the question that Jesus is asking us at the front part of our year, and that is, you are going to chase either your potential or your purpose. So this year, you can chase potential or walk in purpose, but you cannot have both. In Mark chapter 1, Jesus decided, I'm not going to chase potential. I'm going to live up to my purpose. And the God who is full of compassion and mercy left a bunch of people at the line at the door. I mean, people who are hurting and desperately needed healing, women, children, elderly. Jesus knew if I go back to Capernaum and start healing people again, I will serve that line because the line never dies. Have you picked up on this in life? The demands of life never die. You're always going to be pulled. Everyone's going to want more. Someone's going to need something. Some crisis is happening, right next door to your own personal life. And so you got to make a decision this year. Am I going to live purpose or am I going to chase after potential? Because that's really what this is about. So today, I want to show you the opposite side of the coin. Like last week, Jesus walked away. I want to show you what happens when you don't walk away. When you actually try to chase after this proverbial potential that you're trying to fill. We're going to do that by going through the Old Testament today. So if you got a Bible, let's grab it. Second book of the Bible is called Exodus. And we're going to study just a small part of a life of a man by the name of Moses. And more on Moses' life in a moment. But I want to show you where we pick up. Moses has just led the nation of Israel out of 400 years of Egyptian slavery. That's why the book is called Exodus. It's the exit from slavery to the promised land. And we pick up the story. Moses has already parted the Red Sea. He's leading the nation of Israel towards the promised land when his father and mother-in-law get word of all the great things that God is doing through them. And so they're like, Moses, we're going to come celebrate with you guys. And they come and they're congratulating them. Wow, look at you, look at God. Until the next day. The next day, Moses gets up and he does something that his father-in-law goes, man, this is not good for you. So that's what we're picking up today. Exodus 18, verse 13, the next day. Come on, if you're ready, shout, I'm ready. If you need more time, say, hold up. We good? Okay, all right. Verse 13, it says this. I've had somebody say, hold up, I'll wait. Next day, Moses took his seat to hear the people's disputes against each other, and they waited before him from morning until evening. When Moses' father-in-law, in walks Jethro, when Moses' father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he asked, what are you really accomplishing here? This is not good, boy. Why are you trying to do all this alone while everyone stands around you from morning till evening? And Moses replied, man, you don't get it. He probably didn't say it like that. He said, sir, because the people come to me to get a ruling from God. When a dispute arises, they come to me, and I'm the one who settles the cases between the quarrels of the party, and I inform the people of God's decrees and give them his instructions. Maybe you haven't heard this, Jethro, but I just parted a sea. What have you done? If you part a sea, you're throwing that in for the rest of your life. Verse 17, he says, this is not good. I don't care, hotshot. This is still not good. His father-in-law exclaimed, you're going to wear yourself out. And the people too. This job, it's too big, it's too heavy of a burden for you to handle all by yourself. Now listen to me and let me give you a word of advice, and may God be with you. You should continue to be the people's representative before God, bringing their disputes to him. But teach them God's decrees and give them his instructions. Show them how to conduct their lives, but Select from all the people some capable, honest men who fear God and hate bribes. Appoint them as leaders over groups of 1,000, 150, and 10. They should always be available to solve the people's common disputes, but have them bring to you the major cases. Let the leaders decide the very small matters themselves. They will help you carry the load. I love this, making the task easier for you. And if you follow this advice, and if God commands you to do so, then you will be able to endure the pressure. Oh my goodness, you feel pressure. You'll be able to endure the busyness and the weight of life. And all these people will go home in peace. Verse 24, Moses listened to his father-in-law's advice and followed his instructions. I really want Jethro's instruction to his son-in-law to serve really as our focus today. Look back at verse 14. He looks at him and he says, what are you really accomplishing here? Today, part 2, if you take notes, I want to title this message, What Are You Doing? Come on, look at the person that you came with and get a little attitude and be like, seriously, what are you doing? What are you doing? Can I ask you a question? How do you respond when somebody calls you out? Yeah, it doesn't ever feel good, does it? How do you respond? Do you deny it? Do you try to justify what you do? Maybe for you, you get defensive. What do you do when somebody calls you out? Well, I think the answer is, well, it just depends, right? Like it depends on who is calling me out and what are they calling me out for. I just think that because this is Moses' father-in-law, a man that you'll see obviously respects, this call out had a lot of weight. But the question that I've been wrestling with is, why is Moses, who's supposed to be leading the nation to the promised land, why does he find himself sitting in the proverbial judge seat, being weighed down with all these simple little tasks? Like, what's going on that he's so distracted? Well, in order to understand that, I got to take you back about 60 years before Exodus 18 ever took place. I don't know if it's exactly 60 years, but according to Hebrew timeline, we're going to get pretty close. 60 years before this moment, Moses was born into a wonderful family. He was born to a family with an older sister. Her name was Miriam. And like an older sister does, she kind of became the little mama bear of the house, taking care of the other siblings. And she was a really great right hand to Moses' mother. Then there was Aaron. Aaron was the middle boy. Well, before Moses was born, he was the baby. Now it flipped him into the dark hole slot called the middle child. If you have a middle child, hang on tight. I'm a middle child. We're going to make it. There's grace. They're going to do okay. And then Moses was born. This little beautiful baby was born into one of the most horrific periods of history. The nation of Israel, Hebrews, were slaves living in a land called Egypt, so far from anything called a promised land. And what should have been a moment for a brand new, a mother, should have been a moment of nesting and caring and beginning to bond with her child. It was a time of, fear and panic. One day she gets this knock at the door. It's one of those hurried kind of knocks that on the other side of the door cannot be anything good. She goes to the door, unsure of who's on the other side, creaks the door just enough. Light shines into the dark home with the dirt floor. And she, to her surprise, sees a very familiar face. It's one of her best friends. She opens up the door. Her friend quickly runs in and closes the door behind her. And she looks at Moses' mother and she says, "Did you hear the news?" Moses' mother, unsure of what she's talking about, says, "What news?" Her best friend realizes in this moment, I'm going to have to tell this mother the most horrific thing I could ever have to tell her. The Pharaoh last night issued a legal decree that all male babies under the age of 2 are going to be removed from their home and murdered. At the sound of murder, she froze right there. She couldn't move. She couldn't speak. Time stood still. The woman was talking, but all she was hearing is murmuring. When all of a sudden, Miriam, her oldest daughter, was shaking, "Mom, Mom, snap out of it." The moment finally happened, Mom snaps out, and this mama bear instinct kicks in. The kind of instinct that only a mother knows. She made a decision, not my baby, not my Moses. They're going to have to kill me just to get to him. She immediately looks at Aaron, and Miriam says, "Let's go to the back room." They go to the back room where the bedroom is. It's really small, but there's a little closet. It's a little hole in the wall. They begin to soundproof this room, and they put blankets and pillows and cloths, anything that they could find. For the next 3 months, this would be the home of Moses to keep him hidden. And the crazy part is, it worked until it didn't. Because mothers, you can only keep a baby quiet for so long. They only eat and sleep and eat until they want to actually play and they discover their vocal lungs. And you can't control a little baby when they're finding out that they have this thing called a vocal cord. And so Moses' mother knows that this day would always come. Forced with a decision, do I love parenting this baby more than I love the life of Moses? That's an easy decision, right, moms? She chose the life of Moses. She begins to devise a plan that only a mother could devise, and she goes down to the market and buys a bunch of wicker and begins to fashion a basket. It's not really a basket, it's more like a floating device. And she puts tar in it to make sure that it's waterproof, and then she takes the basket down to the Nile River as a test run. She takes a rock that's about the same weight and size of Moses, places it in the basket, and it works. It actually floats, no water comes in. She knew that this was the only chance that her son had of living in survival. Next week, it was the day. Midweek was her only opportunity to do this. The sun rose early that morning. She grabs her newborn baby in the little floating device, and they sneak out the back door before the rest of the town got up. And she goes down to this river. Why the river? Because the Nile flowed right into where the palace of the Pharaoh was. Why midday? Why midweek? Because every midweek, like clockwork, Pharaoh's daughter would go down to that river and bathe. And Pharaoh's daughter was different. She wasn't like her grandfather and her daddy and her uncle. She was compassionate. She was kind. She showed respect even to the Hebrew slaves. And she knew, that's who I want to raise my baby. So a mother holds her child for one last time. I can't even imagine this moment. Holds little baby 3-month-old Moses, and all of a sudden Moses' life flashes in front of her eyes. His first steps, his first words, first time going into kindergarten, riding training wheels, his first heartbreak, his first love, his first marriage, all the memories and things that she would never experience. But at least he would have the memories nonetheless. Crying with tears in her eyes and streaming down her face, she kisses her boy and places him in this raft device and sends him down the Nile. Now, like a good mom, she walked the whole way just to make sure that everything was going to work out according to her plan. And sure enough, like clockwork, there was the Pharaoh's daughter taking a bath. She sees the basket, she goes over to it, and with one look, falls in love with this little baby boy. Of course she would. Moses was a great baby. She takes the baby into the palace and adopts Moses as her son. So here's Moses, this Hebrew slave boy, now being raised in the Egyptian palace, which basically means that he doesn't fit in. No. The Hebrews didn't receive him as one of their own because he was being raised with the Egyptians, and the Egyptians didn't receive him as one of their own because he didn't have the same skin color and blood in their veins. It's almost like when you're born and the world gives you a bag of puzzle pieces. And you and I, we spend the rest of our life trying to put the pieces together to figure out who we are and our identity and our personality and our family of origin. But imagine that there's this one piece that's not in your bag. It's your identity. Moses constantly fighting for approval, yet feeling like he never would fit in. I can only imagine the teenage years and the young adult years as that anger begins to burn inside of him. Man, if you've ever dealt with anger, you know you can only keep it in for so long. One day he takes all of his aggression, all of his daddy issues out on this one fellow Egyptian soldier and ends up murdering this dude, buries him in the sand. And the next thing you know, Moses goes on a fugitive run for 40 years. So 40 years later, God finds Moses and meets Moses as he's a shepherd now of some cattle. Hidden with the beard and dirty and old looking, God shows up, and it's an odd way. It's a bush that's on fire, yet it's not being consumed. And God speaks from the bush, and if a bush speaks, you would listen too. And you would wonder, what did I the other night? Anyways, and so this is the 10:30, you never know. And so God says you need to remove your sandals and you're standing on holy ground. In other words, I'm about to do a new thing in your life. And then God said the 3 words that Moses' heart longed to hear. I choose you. The first time he had ever been accepted. He turns him around, puts him back into Egypt to his grandfather's palace, delivers the nation out of Egyptian slavery, and now they're heading towards the promised land. Now, I would think that if God approved of me through an audible burning bush, I'd be good on the approval meter, right? Like, I'm good, God's got me. Not Moses. No, I think the reason why Exodus 18, I see it different now. The reason why he's sitting around the judge's seat trying to meet all the demands is because he's still trying to prove himself as if he was 12 years old, fighting for somebody to say, I choose you. He's trying to prove himself. And I just got to wonder today if maybe part of the busyness and the rush and the overcommitting of your life, the constant hustle promotion, I need more and bigger and better, is because you, like Moses, are fighting for approval. Fighting for the approval of people, trying to prove yourself that the haters are wrong, prove yourself to your mama or people that had given up on you, or maybe you're just trying to prove yourself to you, which is often the hardest person to convince. Hey, I've been there. I know I've been there. I find myself falling back into this. I remember 17 years ago when I first started in full-time ministry. I've been very blessed, by the way. All 17 years have been right here at Lifepointe. And this month, do you know January this month marks the start of my 10th year as lead pastor of Lifepointe Church, which is just incredible. Yeah, thank you. We love it. You guys are family to Emily and I, and this is just so much more than a church, and we're just so blessed. But 17 years ago, listen, when I first started, I did not know how to pastor people. I had a 4-year double major Bible degree, and I had good theology. I could exegete a text. I knew I had a gift of communication, and I had a heart to serve the local church. But I had no idea how to pastor people. I had just associated ministry with busy. That somehow the more active I am, the more effective I'll become. It takes a lot of years of wisdom to realize that active and effective rarely go together. So I just had subscribed that ministry never clocks out. And I was busy. I remember one week and it all came to a head. I went to the hospital like 4 different times, officiated a wedding, did some counseling. I had to actually cancel plans with my new wife. But I didn't mind. Don't worry, we're still married. Some of y'all look nervous. But I didn't mind because I was doing it on the altar of ministry. So I go in Monday for a staff meeting, and I can't wait to tell everybody all the things that I had done. I'm expecting to get the accolades and that a boy and way to set the bar. When our founding and lead pastor at the time, Matt McGee, looks over at me, and he pulled an Exodus 18 Jethro. He said, what? What are you doing? And I'll tell you, church, man, I learned an invaluable lesson, not just in ministry, but in life. And that is not every need is for you to meet. I feel some freedom coming over some people today. Maybe especially mothers. Moms, not every need is for you to meet. I had a lot of activity, but my life lacked clarity. And I really think now, 17 years later, 39 years old, that all of life really is a fight for clarity, isn't it? Because clarity is what gives your life speed. It's why when you go somewhere where you know where you're going, and you know the turns, and you know what highways to merge onto and to merge off of, you can go a little faster because you've got clarity. But if you've ever been behind somebody who doesn't know where they're going, what do? They slow down, they roll down the window, they squint, which I don't understand why that would help you read the street sign. You ever done it? You turn down the radio because somehow the radio blocks your sight? Yeah, you're thinking about it like, wow, I have done that. Why do I do that? Yeah, why are they slowing down? Because they don't know where they're going. They lack clarity. That when you have clarity for your life can go further and it can go faster. That all of life is a fight for clarity. Today I want to talk about that. I want to allow Moses to really pastor us today. And I just feel like my role as your tour guide through Exodus 18 is to just be Jethro. And I'm just going to ask you, what are you doing? So let's look at this again as Moses finds himself in a very unhealthy place like we often do. Verse 13, it says this, the next day, Moses took the seat to serve as the judge for the people, and they stood around him from morning till evening. Now let's just pause, because at first glance, you're like, what's that big deal? He's helping people, he's settling disputes, he's keeping the peace. The only problem is that that's not what God called him to do. God did not call him to settle discretionary disputes amongst the people. He called him to lead, to go to the promised land. In other words, Moses had settled for a good thing and forfeited the God thing. And so God, in his grace, sends him a friend and a father-in-law in Jethro. Look at Jethro. It says, when his father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he said, boy, that's Nate inflection, what is this you are doing for the for the people? Why do you alone sit as judge while all these people stand around you from morning till evening? Ooh, I love me some Jethro. One of my favorite characters in the Bible, mainly because we all need a Jethro. I'm telling you right now, like if you're gonna live a life of purpose, the way you protect your purpose is by surrounding yourself with the right people. In 2023, if you want to walk in purpose, you will not do it alone. You need to surround yourself with people who love you enough to speak the hard truth over your life, even when you don't want to hear it. All right, I'm going to start with the ladies. Can I talk to you ladies for a second? Come on, ladies. You need this. You need other godly women that you give permission to speak in when they see that you're settling for anything other than God's best. Hey, especially if you're a single lady dating in this culture. Come on, single ladies. You need some other women that are going to look at you and be like, girl, what are you doing? I mean, you obviously are not thinking clearly. I mean, this guy has no job. He has no car. You Ubered to the date last night. This is not environmentally friendly. He is broke. Lives in his mama's basement. Like, girl, don't you dare be fooled by those good looks, because that brother is fine. I'll give you that. He is fine. But that like chiseled jaw one day is going to turn into a gobbler. Like gravity will catch up, okay? And that nice hairline will recede and it will be a cul-de-sac, okay? So since you clearly are not thinking with your brain but your heart, allow me to be your brain to inform your mouth that you got to tell him he's got to go. Come on, single ladies, you need this in your life. Whew. I need people to help me see what I can't see. Ladies, you need women that are going to speak truth over you. They're going to call you out when you start with that negative self-deprecation talk. When you start regurgitating the lies of the enemy from your past, I will look at you and say, that is not the truth of what God has called you to be. You're a different kind of woman. You need a Jethro. And men, we need a Jethro. We need some iron sharpens iron. Some guys that will look at you, that you give permission, that will freely tell you the truth because they love you and they want what's best for you, to say, look, you've been at the office way more than you've been at home. Hey, how come your golf swing is getting better while you're raising children? Oh, that touched some people, didn't it? Like, don't touch my golf swing now. Hey, I haven't seen you in church in over a month. Why are you spending money the way that you are? Oh, we all need a Jethro if we're going to get to where God wants us to be. I love Jethro because he steps in, and think about this. He could care less that Moses has just spoke to God in a bush, parted the Red Sea, defying the laws of gravity and physics. He could care less that he is the selected leader. He looks at him and says, Mr. Big Shot, what you are currently doing is not good. Now, here's the thing about Jethro in your life. You ready? Jethro cannot be your spouse. Okay, married couples, all right. If you're young in the marriage, this is going to hurt. If you're seasoned 15 years or more, you're going to say, preach it, white boy, okay? Because what I'm about to say is true. Because you as a spouse could be telling your spouse what they need to do 100 times, can't you? And then one friend comes in and repeats what you've been saying for a decade, and then they make the change. Am I right? Yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah, come on. Like, in this marriage, Moses' wife had been like, Moses, man, you look tired. Hey, baby, you look exhausted. Mo, what you doing, man? Why are you sitting as the judge? Mo, you're supposed to be leading the people. Hey, Mo, this is the 4th night in a row that you've been late for dinner. Mo, I need you to listen, and I need you to listen closely. If you will not make me a priority, then you're not going to get no Mo. Mo, are we good, Mo? Oh, come on, don't over-spiritualize this. This is a marriage just like yours. She's like, I'm not no trophy wife. I want you to love me, take care of me, pamper me, date me. Oh, you need a Jethro, but it can't be just your spouse. And I think this creates the issue. Most of us don't know what a real friend looks like. Can I read you something that kept me up this week? According to some recent statistics that I read, 45% of Americans say that they don't have one real friend. If that's true in this room, it means every other person says, man, I don't even got a real friend. We are a lonely people. According to research from Harvard Graduate School of Education, 36% of Americans feel serious loneliness. Now hold on to this. 61% of that 36 are young adults. So young adults 19 to 25 experience serious loneliness. According to the Cigna Health Survey, nearly 54% of American adults agree with this statement: nobody really knows me. And the most significant decline in friendship is among men. Men, listen up. The percentage of men who say they have no close friends has quintupled since 1990, affecting nearly 1 out of every 6 American male. So men and women, we have never been more connected, yet we feel so isolated. And so I ask you as your Jethro, what are you doing? Why aren't you allowing people in? Why do you keep such a wall? Why won't you be vulnerable and risk friendship? Because the only way that your purpose is going to get protected is if you surround yourself with the right people. Thank God for Jethro, because he was bold enough to speak. Listen to what Moses says. I think the answer is so telling. Moses answers him, look at this. I'll tell you why, father-in-law, because the people come to me to seek God's will whenever they have a dispute. And it's brought to me, and I decide between the parties, and I inform them of God's decrees and instructions. Did you notice this? In 2 verses, Moses refers to himself 3 different times. He's like, Jethro, you're out of touch, okay? I don't know what you're doing back in your homeland, but around here, I'm the boss, okay? God chose me. I'm the prophet of God. I'm the miracle maker. I parted a sea down the highway. That's right. Or a highway down the sea. Got it in reverse. Don't worry about it. Let's keep going. And everybody needs me to make the decisions because I got the wisdom and I know exactly what God wants for the people. Yeah. And I just want to help you today, because whenever you feel like you're the one that has to solve everybody's problem, then you are suffering from what is called the Messiah complex. Oh boy, we got a lot of really good-hearted, Jesus-loving, people-loving men and women in the house today, where you are walking around shouldering a weight that you were never intended to carry because you actually believe that if I don't fix it, it won't get fixed. But I want to set you free. You ready? Last time I checked, you are not Jesus. Is Jesus in the room? Is Jesus in the room? Online? Okay, good. So yeah, you're not Jesus. And that's good news. You can't out Jesus. He's pretty good. Like you can't Jesus juke Jesus. Like he knows more about your friends and your family members and your kids more than you do. And so if all you're doing is trying to be their Messiah, no wonder we're not pointing them to the real true God. So you got to discern when you're giving advice. You got to realize that outside of the aid of the Holy Spirit in them, convicting them, your advice is a Band-Aid at best. And look, I am preaching to the hypocrite on the stage, because if I wanted to, I could sit on the proverbial judge seat of Lifepointe and literally settle disputes and debates from sun up until sun down. I could. And I wish, and I would do it. You know why? Because I love you. I love you. I want to see the best for your life. I wish I could visit everybody in the hospital. I wish I could counsel every counseling need. I wish I could officiate everybody's ceremony, but I know that if I did that, I would burn myself out. And so Lifepointe is, we've structured ourselves in a way that this thing is not built on the personality or the gifts of one person. Hey, if you're expecting the pastor to do everything, don't do Try 5. Just leave. Because that's not how we do it here. Like if I even tried that for 6 months, y'all, I would be burned out. My wife would resent me, and I'd have no relationship with my kids. And I just want you to know today that if Lifepointe Church succeeds but my family fails, I failed. I failed. My ministry is to my family first, because anybody can replace me as pastor of Lifepointe Church. Nobody can replace me as dad to those kids, husband to my wife. And I would propose to you that anybody can replace you at your job. I know that's hard to hear because you're great at what you do, but give it 6 months. Okay, you're really good, 8 months. And that company's gonna figure out a way to move on without you. But nobody can replace you as mom. Nobody can replace you in the home. That's your job. And so our goal at Lifepointe is care, 100%, it's care. And the way that we primarily do that is through what we call life groups. That's why coming up in February and this spring, I want you to get into a group. We got our winter, spring semester coming up. You can begin to register even today. You'll hear more about that coming up. But these are small groups of adults that literally meet all around the greater Charlotte, Rock Hill, Indialand, Fort Mill area. And this is the way that we care for people. It's how Lifepointe stays small even as our church grows big. It's where you eat together, play together, learn together, discipleship together, do life together. I want to get you in a group. And so Jethro looks at his son-in-law, his naive son-in-law who's suffering from the Messiah complex, and he puts him in his place. Look what he says in verse 19. He says, listen now to me, and I'll give you some advice, and may God be with you. I like that, don't you? You should try that next time you give advice. Be like, son, I'm going to give you advice, and may God be with you. Because once this door closes, I'm not with you anymore. You must be the people's representative before God, Moses. Bring their disputes to him. Teach them his decrees and instructions. Show them the way that they are to live and how they are to behave. But you got to select capable men from all the people, men who fear God, trustworthy, hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials to thousands, fifties, and tens. Have them serve as judges for the people for the times, but have them bring every difficult case to you. The simple cases they can decide. This will make your load lighter because you will share it. I love that. Share it with you. And if you do this and God commands, you will be able to stand the strain, stand the pressure, and all these people are going to go home satisfied. Here's what he's telling them. This is the practical thing I want you to grab onto if you're going to prioritize and have clarity in your life. You've got to prioritize purpose. That's basically what he's telling them. Your priorities are out of line. The buttons on the shirt are completely off. I need to help rearrange this in the order in which it was always supposed to be. And what I love about this word purpose is that purpose answers the question, what matters most now? So let's talk about purpose. Like when you think about purpose, there are two types. If you're a follower of Jesus, there's what I call a common purpose, and then we all have a personal purpose. So if you follow Jesus, your common purpose is to be the hands and feet of Jesus. It's to bring heaven to earth. It's to be an ambassador for Christ. It's to live different. It's to handle your marriage different and parent different and speak different and handle money differently. Why? So that people who don't believe in God will look at you and go, man, what's going on? You're different. That's our goal. It's to usher people and share the good news of Jesus. That's our primary purpose. That's the top button. And the beauty is when you get this one, you prioritize God, oh man, your personal purpose just falls right in line. Because then you got to think about your personal purpose. And personal purpose answers the question, what's most important right now? Now. Like, look, if you're raising kids, if you're starting a business, if you're coming off of a divorce or going through something hard, like it's okay to say, man, this is my purpose. This is what matters most right now. And then leverage all of your yes and all of your no towards that purpose. And I'll tell you today, one of the most sacred parts of your life, a tool at your disposal that's often underutilized is your calendar. Your calendar should reflect your purpose. Can I say it like this? Your schedule should be less about what you want to get done and more about who you want to become. Are y'all with me? Did I lose you? Some of you are like, wait a minute, what? Huh? Yeah. What if your schedule reflected who you want to become, not just what you want to get done? And I know in our culture, like it's the complete opposite. You know, you grab your phone or your physical calendar and you start plugging in all the appointments and all the work stuff and all the kid stuff and all the things that you got to get done and all the family trips and who's coming here and who's going there. And then if there's time, you try to then squeeze in what really should be a main top button priority. It's not going to get you anywhere. So here's a question. As your Jethro today, I want to leave you with this. Very simple. What would your month look like if God was your priority? Just 30 days. What would your month look like if God was your priority? Hey, it's why we're doing 28 days of prayer and fasting like Rich mentioned a moment ago. Today is the start really of week 2. We do this every year where we prioritize God. We get the top button right. And we say, Lord, for the next 28 days, I'm going to remove something out of my life. That's fasting. This thing I'm removing is a distraction. It takes my time, it takes my mental energy. So I'm going to remove it, and I'm going to replace it with intentional time in the Word and prayer. And I love our team. We've gone over and above that. They've created really a text to act called the daily pause. That right now, if you grab your phone, you can text the word pause to the number on the screen. And every day at a random time, you're going to get a text message. It's going to be about a 2 to 3 minute devotional video sent to your phone from people just like you here at Lifepointe. And the idea is to slow down the rhythm of our soul, to learn the rhythm of Jesus. To learn the rhythm of Jesus. Moses did a lot of things wrong, but he got this right. He did exactly what his father-in-law would say. And what's powerful is that in Exodus chapter 19, Moses goes up on top of Mount Sinai, receives the 10 commandments. I fully believe that if Moses would not have done what Jethro told him to do, to prioritize his purpose, he never would have had the capacity to go get the 10 commandments. Here's what God's teaching me as I close. Here's what God's teaching me. When your life is so full, God can't give you anything new. When your life is so full, God can't give you anything new. I believe today that you got an Exodus 19 moment ahead of you, but it's on the other side of a decision on how you're going to prioritize this life. What if for 30 days you said, God, I'm going to prioritize you so that my life can have clarity? So I saw this story. It's not original to me, but I thought, man, this is such an accurate picture of how we live our lives. So if I could summarize your life, my life, in 5 chapters. You ready? I'm going to give you your life in 5 chapters. Here's how I would read. Chapter 1, I went out for a walk, and I fell into a deep, dark hole. It took me a long time to get out of it. Chapter 2, I went out for a walk, and I fell into the same hole, deep, dark hole, and it took me a long time to get out of it. Chapter 3 of your life. I went out for a walk, and this time I saw the hole, but I got too close, and I fell in, and it took me a long time to get out of it. Chapter 4 of your life. I went out for a walk, and this time I saw the hole, and I walked around it. Chapter 5. Yeah, I think we should do that. That maybe God is saying there's a different street that you could go down altogether. One that truly leads to life. Can I pray for you? God, I want that street. Your word says that it's narrow and very few people go down it. I know that's a reference to salvation, but I think it's also a reference to living the life that you want us to live. So God, I'm grateful for men in my life, men like Jethro, who every once in a while care about me enough to go, what are you doing? So God, I pray for clarity for every family, every single, every individual, every high school student, that you give us clarity as we answer the question, what's most important right now? And may we prioritize the top button, which is you, and get the rest in line. And the next thing we know, our lives begin to thrive. God, thank you for the grace that you give us to meet us right where we're at. And Lord, I pray today in faith that we have the courage and the strength to take these steps. We love you. It's in your name. Amen.
Amen. Can y'all help me thank Pastor Nate for a great word today? Super helpful. I think that message is so practical on a lot of different levels. And, one big one that I just want you to think about as you get ready to leave is that, Pastor Nate and our teaching team, it's some of the best preaching that you're going to find anywhere. But it's impossible for a preacher to preach you into relationships with other people. And I say that because if you do nothing else this year, if you really want to do something that will grow you more than you could ever imagine, get into a group and just get with other people. And then you can see some of this transformation that we just read about with Moses, right? Came through that relationship with Jethro. And so I encourage you to get in a group. If you'd like to learn more about life groups, if you go to this next steps area over here on this side of our lobby, you're not committing to anything by just asking some questions, but they'd love to give you some information about what it looks like to join or start a group. And then also before you leave, we're going to throw it on the screen one more time. If you're not part of this daily pause yet, we'd just love for you to be a part. Over 900 people are getting those daily video devotionals texted. And it's just a great way to, again, kind of journey together as a church through this prayer and fasting. So make sure to text pause to the number on the screen and get on that list. We love you guys. If your team's still in the playoffs, good luck. I'm going to prepare for the draft. So I'll see you guys later.
you.